came along, he came down the line and he shook Cory Mills' hand, and Cory told him, he said, you know, I'm a veteran and I'm running for Congress and I want to help you. And President Trump stopped in his tracks and he came back and he got the details about Cory Mills. And that was the first time Cory ever met the president, and I got to be a witness of it. So then I started seeing the campaign photos that he had, and lo and behold, one of the campaign photos was that moment that only I got to see, and he was able to capture it, or his photographer or someone, a friend or whoever took it, was able to capture that very, very special moment. But anyway, since that time, I've followed Cory Mills. He was elected to Congress. He's been more than you could ever expect a patriot, and he's got the battle of his life going on, trying to be reelected. He has an opponent in the primary, and has an opponent from the Democrat side in the general election, and they are trying their best to discredit this man. Anyway, I know Cory Mills to be an admirable, a true patriot, and someone that we need to return to Washington to serve and help President Trump. If you find it in your hearts to help Cory, go to millsforflorida.com. But with that, I want to bring Cory Mills forward and say welcome to Club 47.
Thank you. So tonight I want to just kind of, thank Larry and Sue for all they've done in the Club 47. Give a quick thank you to my brother Brian Mast, who truly is a hero, and somebody I look up to in Congress. But tonight I want to talk about what Congress really is. You know, Congress isn't this great area where laws are made that are in the benefit to the American people. Congress is a broken institution that's lost its way. You know, I've been a registered Republican my entire life, but I can tell you here and now that I identify as a constitutional conservative. I believe in the ideas of the 7 articles and 27 amendments that we are supposed to be governed by. I believe in constitutionality and fiscal responsibility. And I believe in putting people over party. You know, tonight I want to talk a little bit about courage is contagious. You know, as my brother Brian had talked about, before I actually got into Congress in 2021, our team and I had conducted the very first successful overland rescue of Americans out of Afghanistan when Joe Biden had left them behind. And we're all familiar with that somber day on October 7th, which is Israel's 9/11, where 1,200 individuals who were innocent were brutally murdered through barbarism that the world has never known. Raped, tortured, beheaded, and they didn't care about where you were from, how old you were, what you had to live for. And those weren't just foreign nationals, those were American citizens as well. You know, I ask myself, whenever a bill comes to the floor, it's a real simple job in Congress. You prioritize the things that should matter. Is it constitutional? Is it physically responsible? And the 3 criteria for me, is it about America, Americans, or American interests? That's what President Trump fights for every single day. But I remember sitting on October 10th, and we had just gotten done voting, and I looked over at one of my best friends in Congress, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Well, I will tell you ahead of time, if he makes the decision, I hope he does, he will be the greatest future governor that we're going to have in the state of Florida. I remember I looked over at him and I said, Byron, I can't sit here and do nothing. I got my team together, my amazing chief of staff, Catherine Treadwell, and the rest of the team who tirelessly worked on putting together a spreadsheet, calling every single office in the House, every single office in the Senate. Do you have someone left behind? Do you have someone in trouble? Do you have someone who can't get out? And we compiled this list, and I've been blessed that throughout my military career, having served in the 82nd Airborne Division, having been attached, thank you, Airborne. Having been attached with a couple of JSOC ops where I was able to work with all the cool guys like Brian. And between my time in the State Department and the agencies, I'd spent over 7 years in Iraq, 3 years in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Pakistan, North Somalia, and I'm sure all the areas you want to go buy timeshares. But that also gave me the advantage that I speak Arabic fluently. And I'd worked in Jordan for a while, helping work with the Kingdom of Oman's Special Operations Training Center, and also having lived there as we were transferring through. On October 10th, I remember telling Byron, I can't be here. I know that Americans are in trouble, and I know that Biden's going to do nothing to help them. And on October 10th, I took myself and I got a signal chat together and said, follow me. You can see where I'm at. Track me where I'm going, but I'm going in. I called 2 guys that I went to Afghanistan with and said, look, get on the next thing smoking. We need to get over there. We need to do something now. I landed in Amman, Jordan on October 11th, only days after the horrific incident. And when I talk to you about courage is contagious, I want to preface this by understanding that this is not about me. This isn't how I exuberated the level of confidence to be able to go over and commit something that some see courageous. But you'll see the point of this in one moment. You know, when I got to the bridge, you have multiple bridges there, and we're on this group chat, and we're telling everybody, all right, look, we're going to go into Tiberias, we're going to go into Nazareth, we're going to go into Haifa. These are our 3 key areas. We have 32 Americans that we can get out today if we can get across successfully. And the next day, we had a plan to go into West Bank and Jerusalem and out toward Gaza. And we knew we had at least 40 to 45 people that we could rescue there. And as I got to the bridge, we're talking about all the different bridges that cross the Jordan River. You have King Hussein Bridge, Sheikh Hussein Bridge, Al Arabi Bridge, it goes on and on. And we had coordinated that I'm going to meet at Sheikh Hussein Bridge. That's where I need the vehicles to be. We're going to go in, we're going to make sure we make things happen. I get to the other side of the bridge, and I'm able to get through to the checkpoints. Checkpoints close at a certain time, so we didn't even have awareness on whether or not I'd be able to get across. When I got across, I immediately text the guys, and I said, all right, where are you guys at? Give me a PID, which is positive ID. They send me a photo of the vehicle, and I show them a photo of what I'm wearing in my backpack. I walk across the bridge, I'm looking around, and I'm looking around. I'm like, gosh, I wonder where the heck they are. So I quickly tell them, hey, guys, where are you at? Just got across Sheikh Hussein Bridge. Yeah. As soon as you get across, you're going to see us right across from King Hussein Bridge. You're going to look. And I stop. I reread it 2 more times. And I text, really funny, JK, LOL, emoji, smiley face. Like, seriously, I'm at Sheikh Hussein Bridge. Now, Sheikh Hussein to King Hussein is about an hour and a half drive. They're the only ones that got armored vehicles. And I had a question for myself at that moment. Now, I have the liberty of returning back to the hotel, waiting for my guys to land in the next hour and a half to 2 hours, getting refit, re-coordinating with everyone to consolidate into these hotel areas, and then be able to come tomorrow with the perfect idea, perfect plan, perfect layout. I can just go tomorrow. But then something flashes at the fact that the people you've been texting may not have it tomorrow. When you're faced with these types of questions, it's just like the same one that I was asked when I said, if I'm going to run for office, the main question that I have is, are you willing to protect and preserve our republic or protect and preserve your title and your seat? For me, it's an easy answer. And on this occasion, I actually had text with Brian and with Byron Donalds and with others, and I said, I'll find a way, I'm going anyway. I texted the team and said, look, you're not going to be able to catch me in time. I'll find a way in the Tiberias, meet me in Nazareth, get everything locked on, let's start getting Haifa guys moved. And I go across and there's these taxi cab stands. So you're looking for the one that looks the least shady. And you're going, nah, you're watching me too closely. I don't think you're right. Nah, I don't even trust your driving skills. You not paying attention, you're my guy. And I walk over to him and I try to speak Arabic, because in Israel you have people who speak Hebrew, Arabic. I mean, it's very much an understood language. I get there and I figure out very quickly that he speaks about that much Arabic, that I speak about that much Hebrew, and that we're going to have about that much conversation. And I tell people this, but I promise you, if you ever have family game night, I am the Olympic gold medal winner, not woke Olympic, but actual gold medal when it comes to Pictionary. If you want to see me, 3 letters, look at me, drive this way, turn it down, go that way. I'm not sitting in the front, I'm going to sit in the back. I've got my bag. Go over there. Great job. Keep moving that way. I am your man for Pictionary all day of the week. Trust me. Thank you so much. Let's go. All right. So we're sitting there, and I'm like tracking them on my GPS. I'm watching where the team's moving. They've got my pause. I've got their pause position. We're moving around. And we get to Tiberias, and we have this consolidated area and this group of people, and their bags are there, their luggage is packed. Some of them been sleeping in the hotel lobby because they didn't have any more money left. Some had all of their canceled flights from any American commercial airline because the insurance companies called every American airline and said, if you land in any of the airfields, our insurance will not cover your airframe. Now let me remind everyone, by the way, that these very same airlines are the ones who I wouldn't have supported it, but got billions and billions of dollars in bailouts from taxpayers, and yet they would put profits over people whenever we needed them most. This is the idea of why I believe in a limited government, and government being out of our lives to allow the private sector to thrive and the federal government to withhold. But when I walked in, I looked at everyone, and they were all excited to see me. I introduced myself. Hey, my name's Congressman Cory Mills. I've been in touch with a lot of you. Our team had been in touch with you. Remember that plate break plan where I'm going to come in here, I've got security, we got our vehicles, and everybody's kind of looking at me. I said, well, it's me, and I got a couple of taxi cabs outside. And all of a sudden, this young lady who was sitting in this little round back roller chair got up. Her name was Silver Prout. See, Silver's from Alaska and had previously worked at Senator Murkowski's office. And she stood up and she looked at me and she said, I know who you are, I know what you did in Afghanistan, and I'll come with you. You know, sometimes it only takes that one brave man or woman to take that first step, because then all of a sudden you start to see a person go, I'll go, I'll go, I'll go. That courage became contagious because it only took one person to stand and rise above, to not go ahead and fall prey to the fear, to the concerns, to the uncertainty of the unknown. You know, I know another man who stands for those exact same values, and someone we need back in the White House, and that's President Donald J. Trump. A man who rose in defiance, not in fear, after the July 13th incident. But when I got to Nazareth, the team was there, the buses were locked on, folks had come in from Haifa. We were able to start maneuvering down, me walking each individual personally across, making sure that we press their visas, make sure we're getting them onto the buses, making sure they were getting safely across. And on October 11th, only days after the horrific incident, was the first 32 Americans that had been rescued out of Israel. And the next day, 45. And the next day, we kept going. And in total, we had 255 Americans rescued out of there before Joe Biden even put a plane on the ground. In the meantime, you had Germany and even Mexico and the Philippines who were sending things over to get Americans out. And meanwhile, Joe Biden was sitting around eating ice cream, smelling children. taking naps, looking for his uncle who had been cannibalized. But I used to have this saying, I'd go on Fox News a lot, and it wasn't to try and bump my name ID, it wasn't because I was trying to get kudos, but it was because I had figured out that you can shame this administration into doing what is right. And I had this kind of catchphrase after I'd end my little segment, and I caught on one day, and I just kept going, all right, well, that's pretty good, I'll use that. And it was simply that if Joe Biden won't do his job, I'll go over there and do it for him. You see, that has to be the mentality of every single American, not just the person who sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You know, when I came back, you realize that sometimes when you do difficult things, that it's not always as popular. You're going to get attacked for it, but sometimes it actually brings people together. I had Debbie Dingle, and I'll tell you a story about Debbie Dingle, who is very radical, very left, very progressive out of the state of Michigan. You almost feel like an infomercial, right? You talk about the Afghanistan rescue, you talk about the Israel rescue, and then I feel like, but wait, there's more. Fast forward to 2024, we start seeing the departure and falling apart of the country of Haiti, right off of our coast. Knowing how impactful that is for the state of Florida, where we have lots of Haitian Americans amongst us in our nation and our population here in the state of Florida. Once again, you had the spokesperson for the Department of State, Miller, step up and say, at this time, we have no intent and or plan to rescue Americans in Haiti. It's a level 4 country that we have been warning for years and that they traveled at their own risk. You know, let me be clear on one thing. I don't care what political affiliation you are. I don't care who you vote or who you support. I don't care which president you elected into office. If you're a blue passport holding American, the federal government has a right to be able to try and come and protect you and preserve your life. That is the one role that we should be playing, is the protection of Americans here and abroad. And immediately I called our team and said, look, they're not going to do anything. We have to get up there once again. We took a helicopter that a friend of mine had. We island hopped until we got into Santo Domingo and then over to Puerto Plata. Made our plans, refit that night, got in contact with 10 Americans who had been trapped as a missionary. And when we got in, we knew that all of the airports had already been stopped. Port-au-Prince, Cap Haitien. The only thing that we had to look for, which is why we took the helo, is a 100 by 100. We could get an S-76 Sikorsky to be able to get in so that we could lift off safely. We knew that at 9 o'clock, the gangs had stopped operating because there was a lockdown in place. And at this time, you had the GS9 gangs under Jimmy Xavier, which they called barbecue, and others who are actually carving individuals up with a machete and leaving them in the streets to terrorize those around. You know, when we flew in around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We didn't make any notification because you believe in communication security. We wanted to make sure that we had the people on the ground to be able to be ready, but we also didn't want to give them too much information they may share with their friends. About 20 minutes out, I remember texting a guy named Mitch Album, who was the coordinator for this rescue for missionaries. And I said, Mitch, leave all bags, only a laptop bag and a backpack can come. We're going to be at max load. We're going to be on the ground soon. Flip your porch lights on and off whenever I tell you. When we got close, we were trying to move as low to the ground as fast as possible at about 120, 140 knots. We actually texted and said, flip them on now. We barely caught a glare of the light, flipping on, flipping off, flipping on, flipping off. We immediately banked into that area, went ahead and flared out, came down into a 100 by 100, pulling the very first 10 onto the board, took off, had 67 seconds in total that we were sitting on the ground, and within an hour we were back in Santo Domingo, where we were landing and telling everyone once again the thing that I love saying more than anything: you're safe now and you're going home. And the next time was 13. And then we partnered with a true Florida legend, Tim Tebow. And we were able to rescue 59 children with mental and physical disabilities to be able to get them resettled in Jamaica that were being starved by the GS9 gangs. They didn't feel they were worthy of a bullet. They wanted to starve them to death. You know, sometimes doing the right thing is just doing the right thing. And that's the same when it comes to Congress. There's many times that there's been Republican bills that come to the floor that I'm proud to be one of 21, one of 35, one of 71. Because I can tell you, when it comes to constitutionality, when it comes to protecting the sovereignty of this nation, when it comes to the idea of putting America, Americans, and American interests first, I will always vote on the right side of we the people, not we the government. You know, we've got these scorecards that come out, and it's 98% for CPAC, or 100% for Heritage Action, or 98% for Freedom Works, or it goes on and on and on. And you know, I've got within the very top of 98 to 100% on every single scorecard, but I've got an F on one scorecard. And I wear it as a badge of honor. I've got an F when it comes to the scorecard of continuing to send money for these endless wars and helping to shut down the borders of someone's country 9,000 miles away when we haven't even shut down the borders 900 miles away. So yes, I didn't fund Ukraine. No, I won't fund Ukraine. But I will put America first. You know, how many people are familiar with FISA? Something that the FBI themselves said was violated over 287,000 times to pry and spy on the American people. The thing that was utilized against President Trump like crossfire hurricane when they were spying on the campaign and then trying to deny it. The same FBI that has continued to try and label Moms for Liberty as domestic terrorists are those who actually stand for school rights. Well, let me tell you, when the Republican Party presented the actual FISA 702 reauthorization, looking at the violations of your Fourth Amendment rights and your Sixth Amendment rights to fair and due process, but also the ideas of not having warrantless search and seizure, you're damn right that I was a no on voting against the Republican Party on this. And if you're familiar with the authorized use of military force, which has been a carte blanche warfare that's been utilized since 1957, 1991, 2001, and 2002, all of which are no longer being used for their original purposes and intent. It was carte blanche warfare and abdication of responsibilities under Article 1 to the executive branch. It is a direct violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 through 13, the war power authorities that should only exist within the legislative body. So when it came time, even though there was only about 20 to 30 of us, I voted to repeal the AUMF against Somalia. I voted to repeal against the AUMF of Syria. I voted to repeal against the AUMF of 01 and 02 because I have no desire to continue to have American troops playing catch with indirect fire from Iran when we should be protecting our military, bringing them home, and guaranteeing they serve America, not another government's interest. We have to get out of the mindset of this neoconservative, neoliberal, warmongering, interventionist world police mindset. We have to make sure that we're holding our adversaries accountable the way President Trump did when he took out Qasem Soleimani, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, held China accountable, and guaranteed that he placed American lives before all others. A man who did more for treaties when it comes to Abraham Accords that normalized relationships with our longest ally, the Free State of Israel, something that hadn't been done since 1979 in Egypt, 1994 in Jordan, and this man did more and had more countries join normalized in his 4 years than throughout all of America's history. That's pretty impressive. We have to understand, we keep talking about how consequential every single election is. Well, let me just be clear. This is the most consequential election you will ever face in your lifetime. And this isn't to fearmonger. I'll give you the facts. For the first time in America's history, we will spend more this year in servicing the interest payments on our debt than we will in our entire national defense annual spending. At $36 trillion, we also have the great advantage of joining only 28 empires and nations in the world's history who has exceeded 130% GDP expenditure. And I want to caution you with understanding that of that 28 empires and nations, and I say empires because we know that the great fall of Rome wasn't due to a lack of military expansionism. It failed because they could no longer service their debts. Out of that 28 empires and nations, only one survived. And many argue that Japan didn't survive, but rebranded by changing their currency and their banking systems. America has just put itself on that list. And it's us that has to decide whether or not we're going to be that last shining beacon of hope who has the sunset or the sunrise. We have to understand that we can't continue this idea that we can spend our way to prosperity, that we can cut our way to prosperity. How many business owners do we have in the room today? Every single one of you know that you can't cut your way to profitability. You have to get more revenue, more contracts, and able to ensure the simple equation that my account receivables have to exceed my account payables or I am insolvent as a business. You see, that's the same thing that we are as America. And I have people sometimes ask me, well, Cory, where do you think America took its most pivotal point towards economic failure? China. And it was real easy. Because if you do understand those 7 articles and 27 amendments, you reflect constantly on 1913 when the 16th and 17th Amendment was ratified. You see, if you put them together, it makes sense for what the government was trying to do. The 16th Amendment was when they passed federal income tax. They want you, we the people, to be able to have money taken from you to be able to feed their political greed and agenda in D.C. And they run it under the auspice of better hospitals, better businesses. We're going to take care of the military. We're going to create more roads, as if we didn't have them prior to 1913. But when you look at the 17th Amendment, it all makes sense in what they were trying to achieve. Our United States senators used to be elected by our state legislators. And the reason for that was to ensure that we protected the 10th Amendment for our state and individual rights. It was so that we could guarantee there was a checks and balance, the same way that we have a checks and balance between our executive, legislative, and our judicial branch. But when they came out as politicians, and look, I've been called every derogatory term in the world, the one that I am most offended by is being called a politician. But what they did was they came out and said, why should politicians elect politicians? And when you hear that, there is a part of you that goes, yeah, that doesn't sound right. And when the 17th Amendment passed the popular vote, what did you see? A hockey stick-like trajectory of federal growth for more bureaus, more departments, more agencies, more denial of your individual rights, more disenfranchisement by our state legislators. And let me be clear. Do not neglect your down-ballot votes. The most important votes that you're ever going to have is your city council, your commissioners, your mayors, your school boards, your justices, and your state legislators who touch your lives every single day and it's been weaponized against us. We have seen where the Department of Injustice, because they're not the Department of Justice, has continued to be weaponized for lawfare. We watched in 2004 under the Obama administration, the Obama regime, where they weaponized the IRS to start targeting conservative organizations for audits. We have seen where our school boards have been allowed to create curriculum that is actually going after critical race theory and to indoctrinate and poison the young minds of our future generations. I want to be very clear in this. As the Pledge of Allegiance says, and many others, we are one nation under God based on our Christian Judeo belief, which is the foundation of our Constitution. It is the protection of our inalienable rights and our God-given rights, not our government-afforded and privileged rights. Bear in mind, any time that government says we're going to give you freedoms and liberties, they also have the right to be able to deny them. This is why I will tell you with absolute certainty, we must start limiting DC's power. We must ensure that we return back to state and individual rights. We must stop the warmongering and the fiscal irresponsibility where we're spending at Nancy Pelosi-style levels. In Congress, when you vote against certain things, you'll have some of your leadership or some of these whip teams come to visit you. And I remember there was a tough vote that was coming up, and I made it clear that I was a no vote. And I get a call. You have a big re-election coming up. What do you think it'll cost you for that re-election, and how can we help fund that? I said, well, I do have a big re-election. I said, but is it every one of them? They said, well, what about this? What are you thinking for your next committee? Is there a committee you like, a committee you want to be on? Is there some way that we can try and work with you to get to a yes? See, this is what they want to see, is whether you're malleable enough to be tested by them, or whether you'll stand strong and not just have the lapel pin, but the intestinal fortitude and the moral courage and the spine that's required in order to fight against the DC swamp. And when they realized that I wouldn't accept money and things like this, I kind of quickly looked at them and said, you guys don't know me very well, do you? I said, because I'm the only member of Congress who donates 100% of my salary to a woman, child, veteran charity. This isn't about money for me. This isn't about power for me. This isn't about a title for me. I already know the greatest title that I'll ever carry in my life is the title of Dad. And my 9-year-old knows that that's what I fight for every single day. But I'll tell you that while all of us have been asleep at the wheel, we're all complicit into where we're at as a nation. We didn't get here to the CRT, DEI, and ESG. We didn't get to $36 trillion. We didn't get to the weaponization of our federal government. We used to be a society that would revolt against a 1 cent tax on tea, and now over 60%, 70% gets taken out of our pockets, and we go, well, maybe next election. I feel like it's an Eeyore theme that's starting to come across. It's real simple. I used to be a geopolitical analyst, and actually was lucky enough to be a part of President Trump's administration on the Defense Business Board, helping to be an advisor for Secretary Miller at the Pentagon. And I used to write about this article I wrote about 6 years ago. I probably published about 60 of them at this point. That's called The Great Superpower Resurgence While America Sleeps. You see, I talked about this Russia, China, Iran, North Korea geopolitical alignment for a long time. Far before we had people like Nikki Haley who started reading my articles and then parroting them in the middle of her actual conferences. But that's okay. Apparently, copying people is the thing to do when you look at Kamala Harris not wanting to tax any of the actual workers now. Isn't that fun? If she was as good at word salad as she was at securing our border, we would be in a very good place right now if the borders are under the resolution Biden put in place. But the thing that we have to realize is, when I talk about courage is contagious, I want to go back to this a moment. We have to understand that doing what is right is just doing what is right. It might not be popular. It might not be along the party lines or what leadership wants. But I remember coming to him and saying, guys, I can't keep voting for these Pelosi COVID post-level emergency spending bills, where thanks to President Trump, when he put the tax reform in place, we've seen more revenue come into the IRS than ever before, at over $5 trillion, by the way, which is sunsetting in 2025, which means that every corporation will go from a 21% corporate tax to 43.5% corporate tax. You don't hear Kamala talking about that, do you? The reason why is because they like the grip that they have on the American people, where everything's worked in reverse, because in reality, it's the private sector who should be driving policy to the government, not the government driving policy to the private sector. You're the real job creators. There is no federal shovel-ready jobs. There is no job creation within the federal government. That is what the private citizens of America does every single day, and all we have to do is get permit reforms and stop the overregulation to be able to guarantee economic growth in America. But also we have to understand that China is out to eliminate the U.S. as the global currency. You see, after 1971, 73 thereby, we went away from the gold standard to the petrodollar, this petro-fiat, which is great when you actually are producing and going after advancing the very tangible asset that you're propping your currency upon. But when you got in the first 100 days, the elimination by the Harris and Biden regime to kill Keystone XL pipeline, to force mandates on EVs as if we don't have the right to be able to choose what we drive and how we drive, you're going to see a continual decline. And it's intentional, it's purposeful. They want us all to be standing there like Oliver Gruel, can I get another bowl?
Never.
But I can tell you that if you really want to know, it's not about the dollar, the baht, the yen, the ruble, the peso. Energy is the global currency. And as President said, if you want to find economic growth, you want to find strength, and you want to get our control back, energy dominance through drill, baby, drill. And when it comes to the issues that we have, whether it's CRT in our schools, whether it's DEI in our military, whether it's ESG in our corporations, we should say no DEI, no CRT, no ESG. We need GOD back in our communities, back in our schools, and back in our lives. We have to preserve this nation for our children, our grandchildren, and the unborn. We have to start thinking about the generations ahead. We have to start not prioritizing in election cycles, but in centuries and the preservation of generations to come. If you ever need a reason, if you ever need your why, take a walk through Arlington National Cemetery. Take a walk through your national cemeteries in the state. And point out two key things. One, it is not aligned by your headstones by gender, race, creed. It is aligned by those who fought and died beside you. And we have to ask ourselves every day, do we live a life that is worthy of the sacrifices by so many? Because if we don't, then we're contributing to the problem. We're not actually contributing to the answer. We need to prioritize our veterans above the illegals who are criminally coming across and creating angel families. We need to secure our borders, not the borders of 9,000 miles away in Ukraine and Russia. We need to provide national stance to fight for our children, to make America safe, to make America secure, and to make America great again. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless President Trump. God bless the United States of America.